My name is Timo Halttunen and I'm coming from University of Turku, Finland. And I will be the moderator for this week. And today we already have the second presentation by Ritva and Lauri, whom I will be presenting in a few minutes. But before we go into the presentation of today, I would like to remind you that what will happen this week in general. And so the topic for this week is flexibility in higher education. And here I'm contrasting the recent innovations and developments of today with some views from the 1950s and 60s. And the idea is here to remind that we have actually made quite a lot of progress too. So we haven't stuck on our footsteps like in the old days. Yesterday we had a chance to hear Mikaela Martin, who is from UNESCO, and we had a more macro level view on what kind of issues are related to, for example, entry to higher education. Today we are discussing management topics and about university business collaboration. Tomorrow we are talking about developing a framework for sustainable growth of flexible learning opportunities. And we have a presentation from the US. And then Thursday, our topic is university lecturers and staff development in a post-pandemic world. And then on Friday, we have the panel discussion. But for this presentation that we will be having in a few minutes, so Ritva, R.LAAKSO-MANNINEN and Lauri Tuomi from Finland. And they are both working in an organization called Professional Publishing Finland, Ltd, and have a very extensive history in management and leadership of a University of Applied Sciences in Finland called Haaga-Helia. And I asked all of our speakers of this week that what is their take or interest on this topic of flexibility. And Ritva has answered that management and leadership, strategic management, competence management, and of course, university business cooperation. Lauri answered that lifelong learning, management of higher education, strategic management, competence management, and of course, research, development, and innovation. Then I also probed a little bit that what is their understanding of flexibility in higher education. And Ritva has said that higher education with high quality doesn't survive in isolation, and operating environments change all the time. So therefore, higher education should be open and flexible for the demands of the environment. And maybe Lauri even went a little bit further, saying that during these turbulent times, flexibility is a question of survival of higher education. So very, very interesting commentary you had already before this presentation. And how we work today, so Ritva will be beginning the presentation, and then we have a few questions, and then Lauri will be joining us a little bit later. And Ritva has asked me to share the screen, and maybe you can just say to change the slides, so maybe it's easier for the speaker that way. So shall we start, Ritva? Everything good?
Yes, we can see it here.
Yes, please, Ritva.
Oh, thank you very much. So nice to be here. And yesterday we had a very interesting seminar, and we ended up with a questioning role of management. So it is very good today to start with a presentation that will give some answers to that question, what about management. So I will start with my presentation with this holistic management framework. And then we have the second part of the presentation, and Lauri Tuomi will come to give that. And so the next one, please. So the content of our presentation is here, and I have this holistic management framework. That is what we start with. Next, please. And the framework is based on our research in Finland, and according to OECD's evaluation, the building of the Finnish universities of applied sciences has been a success story. And that was something that made us to think about and study what is the management of universities of applied sciences in Finland, and the framework was created based on our research. And in this framework, we can see the students, the business, but in the middle of the picture, you see the 5 elements, and that those are the main parts in the management. Those 5 elements are first the DNA, then there is the environment, the third is the core elements of management, then there are the enablers of transformation, and the 5th is the success. And I will tell a little bit more about all of these. So we can take the next slide. And first there is the DNA of higher education institution, and we can ask, what is the DNA? We start with that in the framework, and the DNA, it means the factors which have developed in history. And the factors are such like the original purpose of the organization, the culture of the organization, the competencies of the organization. They all have their roots strong in the history. And when we think about these factors, they can be a strength for the organization. But sometimes they are something that prevent the development. And it is very important for the management to understand what is the DNA, and it must be part of the management work to understand the history. And after the history, then we have to look at the dynamic operational environment. And when we study the environment, we first have to look at the global megatrends. And I think you all know the global megatrends. They are climate change, globalization, digitalization, and so on. So we have to look at them, and the management have to think about them, what kind of effect they have to the university. Then there are, in the environment, there are the national trends. For example, political pressure. We have to consider what kind of things is coming from there. And the third thing in the environment are the regional trends and business needs. And especially when we think about this professional oriented higher education, it's very important that we study the regional development, we understand what is happening there, what is happening in the business, what kind of needs they have. So this is the second element in our framework. And we can say that for the management, it's important to understand the history and understand the environment, because the future you can see in the environment. And the management must have a vision, and how after it we can think how to work in this changing environment. Next, please. So the core elements of management, and first what we found in our research. So first there was the will, meaning that what do we want to do? What is the will of the management? And you can see it in the vision of the university, what kind of vision there is, what the university should be. And then we must have the strategy that will describe how we will get to the vision. So first there have to be the will. And then we need skill, meaning the skills, competencies we need to build the future. And the third part is doing, and it usually means change making. And the management's task is to know how to manage it. So we describe the core of the management with these three factors: will and skill, and then doing. And then the next slide, please. Yes. And when we are doing something to make the vision and strategy to work and go towards them, we know that there are usually many kind of transformation, and we were looking which kind of enablers there are that we can make this transformation. And what had happened in the universities of applied sciences, there were 6 essential enablers. First, there was the changes in the research and development and innovation management. And it was very important that the university could find a new understanding of research development and innovations. There was the old tradition from the academic universities and science university, what does this research mean? But it was very important for the universities of applied sciences to find a new role. And I think today the institutions can be quite happy a new role has been found. Then in all the transformation, it seemed to be very important that the quality is included all the time in the teaching and research and company services and in all the operations. So it was very, very important that the quality aspect was included. Then the third factor was business cooperation. in order not to stay behind in development, but to promote it, it was important that the cooperation was very active. And that is something that has been also developed all the time, and it has been something that has helped to make the transformation. And as important as are the business partners, there are a lot of many other stakeholders that are important for the university. And also we have to listen them what kind of expectations they have. And then there was the internationalization was the fifth factor that was very important for the transformation. And I think that now the COVID-19 has made the situation different, and we have to find new ways how to cooperate in the new situation. And then there is the digitalization, and also this period of COVID-19 has meant that many steps has been taken in that area, but I believe that the development will continue, and also in the future this is a factor of the transformation that's very important. So there were these six areas in this transformation that seem to be very important. And finally, in our framework, there is the success of higher education institution. And what was important to notice in our research was that there are several ways to measure the success. And all the stakeholders seem to have different things they emphasize when they evaluate the university. They have different kind of perspectives, and depends on that what kind of measures are important. And this is something we discuss in detail in our research and our book. So this is the framework we made based on our research and the study how to manage university, professional university. And it was interesting when we started to study lifelong learning education and continuous learning. So we find that there are many elements that are common and can help to develop the lifelong learning education further. So this was my very brief presentation of the framework, because we have the idea that we can continue with the question of concerning continuous learning. So thank you.
Thank you, Ritva. And I think we already have some questions in the chat. So let's have a look if there's any. If there is not, so you can write either in the chat or ask directly from Ritva. And like I said, Lauri will be joining us in a few minutes. Maybe while you are wondering about your topic of question, I had one in mind. You talked about the enablers of transformation, and there were the six of them. How do you see at this moment, what is the kind of like the level or status of flexibility for changes in the university management, or maybe we use also the concept of resilience. So has it increased or decreased? What do you think that this ability for new options or taking the changes or embracing them? What do you think?
Yes, if I think about the situation in Finland, I think that when we started to build the universities of applied sciences, there was the must that we have to be very flexible and we have to find new ways how to operate. There were no history, no tradition for that kind of institutions. And we had to find a ways how to operate in a flexible new way. But there's always the threat that when we find a new way to operate, we will stay and continue doing the same, that we have find that it works well, so we continue, and there's always a threat that we don't keep going on being so flexible. But now when we think about demands for concerning lifelong learning, so I think there are a lot of demands in Finland coming from the companies and even coming from the Finnish government today. So I believe that we have to be flexible in that area also in the future.
Exactly. So to combat the process of the routines taking over, so we must be agile and be ready for change all the time.
Yes.
Now there's a question from Jane. So have you applied this framework to other subject areas? It would be interesting to see the places where it is similar and where differences lie.
Yes, we can say that we have used this framework, for example, when we studied how entrepreneurial the universities in Finland are. And that was an area where we have done it. And that is something that will come later on. So Lauri will tell about that later on.
Yes. Jane leaves a thank you for the answer. Any other questions? You can also just switch on the video and sound to ask directly, please. While they are thinking, I had another question in mind, that university management also has to face the challenge of maybe a national accreditation organization, like in Finland there is one, and when they are doing the audits, for example, so they have a different agenda every cycle. So how do you see that this framework you presented, how well does it adjust to this kind of like demands from the national accreditation agencies and their kind of like current topics? What do you think?
I think we can support it, but the starting point for our work was the management work as such, and we didn't want to take as a starting point what the ministry is saying and this administrative viewpoint or this quality as an aspect of, in a way, like control. We didn't want to take that kind of aspect. So we started to analyze the universities more like, how to say, business companies who are doing their strategies independently, and what kind of aspects we can see if we analyze the universities like independent organizations. So it was more from this perspective than from this more like administrative perspective.
Yeah, so kind of like supporting the autonomy of the institutions.
Oh yes, and of course that is very strong point in Finland, that our universities are very autonomous. In Finland they can do that, and of course the situation is different in different countries, and it's not possible in all countries when there is the government or ministry who more directly says what the universities have to do.
Exactly. Thank you, Ritva. Now I see Lauri has entered the building in Tampere, and hopefully can also continue the presentation. Is that correct, Lauri?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Timo, and sorry for my slight delay to join you, but I can see that you have had very flourishing discussion already on the topic.
Problem. Shall I share the slides?
Yes,
where
please.
Ritva ended, I try to scroll there. So
yes, so I can say yes. So we could take this slide first, and I could. Shall I provide my part now, and then we have some time for the discussion?
Let's do that. So please go on.
Thank you. Let's take the next slide. As a continuum of Ritva's part on presenting the holistic management system of the university or higher education institution, of course, the kind of latest developments from a Finnish national perspective. Also, I would like to share those with you first to provide a kind of insight into current issues in our country, supporting actually the activities on continuing education at the university level. So in Finland, currently there is a reform on continuous learning, which is kind of based on the parliamentary discussion on the need for the renewal of labor market competencies. But at the same time, there is the tendency to be able to every organization and every learner to recognize the learning which happens, so to say, everywhere. So, for example, in Finland, think about the non-formal adult education, 1/5 of the population annually participates the non-formal education, which is usually been based on the main idea of the lifelong learning, supporting the personal growth of the individuals and so on. But today, the idea is that this kind of learning which happens on higher education institutions or educational institutions elsewhere could be also supporting the success in the labor market and success of individuals' career. So the recognition and also the competence-based curricula development is in the field very actual in Finland at the moment in every sector of education. And also currently there is a national database for individuals to get the data on their own kind of learning career all the certificates, all the courses they have gone through are now available on the national database, and there is a platform on which every individual can actually find everything they have learned during their lifetime. And also one of the tendencies is also to recognize the learning which happens both on institutional sector but also on businesses. So this aspect on lifelong learning is of important, and of course the role of universities is important in the sense to provide each student and alumni from higher education institution to get data from their activities on learning and get support for the success on their working career. Then let's take the next slide. The reform on continuous learning is based on the latest policy report by the Finnish government. This is on the parliamentary handling at the moment, and this will set up the goals for 2040 in Finland. The whole education policy is in one report, and of course upskilling and reskilling issues are of importance, and also the parliamentary reform and its impact is expected to happen during the next 20 years time. And also, of course, the aim is to create the success for the society in the whole. But the world of work, as we all know, is on a tremendous change currently, and of course then new services, new developments are needed on each part of the educational sector. Let's take the next one. And in more in depth, the parliamentary reform on continuous learning is all about providing the tools for the institutions and businesses to upskill, reskill the people's competencies, and also to support the perspective of lifelong learning during the working career period of time. So mainly this reform is focused for the people of ages 25 to 64, and then this can be seen as one specific part of the kind of whole concept of lifelong learning. But then we could then step back to the university sector and its role. Let's take the next slide. So as already Ritva has explained the holistic management model, we also argue very strongly that lifelong learning and continuous learning services could be seen from the wider perspective of the activities on university level to be active in the environment. So what we have found, higher education institutions could act as enablers for the business ecosystems. They can provide new learning environments for the businesses, from the startups to the growth businesses and larger companies and organizations. Research and development and innovation activities are, of course, also could be seen from the collaborative perspective. Businesses within campus approach is there and is important part of being active participant of the society, and so on and so on. So what we see is that the university business collaboration is actually the key element or key approach to support the role to be active in the society.
Your voice.
And also more in depth, so to say, also the concept of entrepreneurial university is very kind of suitable concept for creating the holistic management system to become a kind of modern active player in the society, so to say. So let's take the next part. So university business collaboration is, of course, an approach which consists of many elements which are interconnected with each other. And also this framework shows that lifelong learning or continuous learning services are one of the key elements of this collaboration, but they are not a kind of separate services or entities in this framework. And this can be seen as a systemic entity also, that each element is interconnected with each other. So if one element is not developed well in the higher education organization, it may weaken the impact of the other elements. So in this respect, the lifelong learning services and continuous learning services need this kind of network of activities to support the success of its and support also the success of both sides, not only the university's success, but also the business's success itself. So this is a strategic view and point of view from the university's perspective also. So these elements should be seen strategically important, interconnected with each other, and each element should be planned carefully how they could be supporting the success of the society too. So in our book we have presented a couple of cases or examples on this university business collaboration concept. So there's just one example in the next slide from the University of Applied Sciences Haaga-Helia, one of the elements on which these all elements were seen from the strategic point of view, and each element supported the others to be successful. So the more collaboration there were, the more, of course, the university itself knew from the kind of needs which were there on the business sector, and also vice versa, the businesses knew also what kind of services could be available in from the university sector itself. And this was a kind of framework which provides success to each of the participants in this collaboration network. Then we could take the next one. So lifelong learning, what we argue is and should be seen from the wider perspective. It's not only to provide educational services, but it's more like developing a system on which its activities support each other's success. So the more collaboration there are, the more kind of successful results could be expected. And in this respect, also to go a bit deeper, also we have provided some kind of guidelines to how to implement successfully university business collaboration as a whole, as a framework. So let's take a look at on the next slide. So just very shortly to highlight the importance of the strategic development, and also the commitment of the kind of management level commitment and top level management commitment to these issues. This is of importance. This is not a part of any specific department at the university, but this is an approach which should be seen from the whole university's perspective. And I think you already discussed that also with Ritva's after Ritva's presentations, that it's very important to develop the university from the holistic point of view, that each activity support the success of each other activities. And it was of course there was a question whether these are presented in our book. Yes, these are presented in our book. But let's kind of finalize my part on the aspect of entrepreneurial university. We find this OECD's framework very useful on thinking about the university's role and the kind of identity of the modern university. As university business collaboration is one part of this kind of entrepreneurial university, then it can be seen that both entrepreneurial university as well as the university business collaboration frameworks support, of course, the lifelong learning services of the university itself. They can be seen as wider frames to develop the university and modernize the university, and also to build a university which is very active in its environment, and it's also very kind of interested in by the other ecosystem participants outside the university. So there are some other aspects on entrepreneurial university, but to at this stage, to provide some time for the discussion also, I just would like to highlight the importance that also this concept sees the university as a holistic entity on which there are different kind of perspectives which should be seen from the entrepreneurial approach in order to provide the university opportunity to be successful in this turbulent and continuously changing environment. So at this stage, I would like to give the floor back to Ritva for us to conclude our presentation. And we could take the final slide also, if Timo, if you could share that.
Yes.
If you go to
Lauri, want to say something about this, or?
I think I already said, but just from our previous research, just to mention that in Finland we actually have research, make the analysis on the strategies of Finnish universities of applied sciences, and we were quite happy to find that at all the Finnish universities of applied sciences were at least partly entrepreneurial, but only a certain set of the universities were actually strategically and holistically entrepreneurial universities, and thinking about the results of these universities, they were the most successful ones, from thinking about also the national results of the universities. So a kind of first impression was that there is correlation between the concept and the success, but of course further research is needed, and of course we aim to do that also, and hopefully to compare other countries also later. Okay, but let's take the conclusions. the next slide.
Yes, to summarize, to conclude, so we can say that the management of the entire university as well as the management of the continuing education can use the same to create a modern approach. So they can use the same frame, and also in practice we have noticed that they are not in a university so separate as they used to be, but more and more the lifelong learning and what's offered for the people who are working, it's becoming a part of the university. I just discussed with the management of Haga-Helia what they are doing today, and they said that it is very important and strongly developed today that the open studies are part of the normal studies. So there are students from companies that can come and participate the same lessons and the other students. So you can't in the future make the difference that are you a full-time student or part-time student, adult student. And it makes it also more and more important that in strategic level we can think about them and development of different kind of education in using the same tools. And so we can say that the continuing education would benefit if the whole university's management system would be modernized and based on the framework and the new ideas of holistic management. And as Lauri told about the frames, university business collaboration and entrepreneurship university, we can say that they strongly support the success of continuing education, and they are today an important part of that. So this is shortly the main conclusions that we can make based on our research. Thank you. Okay, there's also said in the last slide that we will publish a special digital monitoring tool next year that will be available in early next year.
Thank you,
Yes.
Ritva and Lauri. And that was actually a question I had in mind, that have you thought about this kind of a self-assessment tool for following your learnings or teachings? And you might know that actually in the UCAN there has been a project where a kind of a self-assessment tool has been created, but I think it sounds good if you are kind of like renewing and in the framework that you presented. So it sounds very good. Maybe we have a few questions from the chat. So Christina is asking something. Would you like to, Christina, say it yourself aloud?
Okay, hello. Thank you for this excellent presentation. I got two questions, and the first one was about this database for individuals are in terms of learning, and are they similar to the European framework of individual learning accounts? This is the first thing. The other thing is, if these guidelines are in the book you showed us. Yeah. And my third question was a very funny one, sorry. Is there a bird in the background, or is it me and I have to go to the doctors? Sorry. I heard a bird. I don't know. No one heard the birds, just me?
Me too. But maybe we start with the serious questions.
Yes, let's start with the serious ones. So yes, that was a very good question. Is the database similar to the individual learning accounts? Actually, on the European Union level, the individual learning accounts discussions is currently going on, and it might be the case that these accounts, if they will be established in Finland, they could be, of course, integrated to the system. But the main idea of this database at the moment is that it's kind of a collecting tool of everything you have learned during your lifetime. I just, from my curiosity, checked whether all of my different courses and degree programs and so on are stated and are actually and could be found on the database, and it was the case. It was not from the primary school time, but immediately after the secondary level, all the certificates can be available. But currently, as I said, it's more like a kind of collection of certificates. And now we have started the new part that these specific courses, even from non-formal education, can be recognized if the student is willing to get it. So the institutions are, that's their responsibility to do the recognition. And then the next step in Finland is that also all the other kind of courses, even the courses provided or programs provided by the companies themselves could be recognized also. And then the final part is also the informal learning. But that also is one part of our reform currently, to find ways how to recognize learning which can happen everywhere. But we expect that some connections to individual learning accounts will come also. But it's also the question of funding of these learning accounts, and it's also needs some political discussions how it could be then implemented. But in a way, we find it very, very good kind of initiative from the European Union. Yes.
As validation of non and informal learning, you invented this Nordic model from Finland. And
yes.
as far as I know, because I know Mariana Mechelen from your university, she already introduced this Nordic model to your university, right? So you have some experiences with validation of non-formal and informal learning.
Yes, we have. Yes. That has actually the formal kind of recognition started last year. So there are some experience already from the whole country.
Thank you.
Some pilots were done before that.
Is it somehow possible to see this database? I mean, is it possible that we could log in this database, or is it you have to have an account?
I need to check. It's actually kind of organized and run by our Finnish National Agency for Education. So I need to check whether there are any kind of demo possibilities to get into and see it. But of course, there are some reports also on which it's kind of illustrated what kind of database it is. But it's also it could be seen also partly from the platform side. So My Study Info is the platform which can be found, and I can actually put it the link to chat board also.
This would be great. Thank you. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thank greetings you, to Vienna. I just visited last week Vienna, and it was great time there.
Yes, thank you, Kristina and Lauri. Then there was a question from Ulle from Tartu. So do you see connection with or need for development of microcredentials? And that is certainly a topic, the hot topic in Finland at the moment, the microcredentials. How do you see that, Ritva and Lauri?
Yes, Lauri, I think you know the situation more in detail.
Yes, I actually I'm strong believer on micro-credentials, because this is one part of thinking about that everything you learn could be recognized, and also thinking about especially higher education and the idea that the courses could be quite wide. So it could be very good to have these micro-credentials which could be recognized, because of course previously, and you also may have created kind of modular based courses which are kind of entities which now are, by using micro-credentials, could be recognized in a systemic way and in a European Union-wide way. And of course, this is a support for every individual learner also. So this is, I think it's very positive issue, and also it's very good that we, for example, in Finland, could then use this database also. So it's one part of this lifelong learning approach, that everything you learn could be recognized and you could be successful and could show also to others what you have learned. Yes.
And
Ritva, would you? Yes.
Yes, I think it's very important that we have all kind of ways to make the operations and more flexible, because there will be lack of employees and skilled employees, and we have to find ways how they can show what they can do, even if they don't have graduated, but they have the skills. So there must be ways how to show it.
That's a very good point. I think we are just about to close our time, but I would like to maybe highlight something that you said earlier, Lauri and Ritva, that there was a very good point that understanding the changing business needs, and that is connected, of course, with the new professional competencies. So I think that would be impossible to do the adult learning or adult education or updating those competencies unless you have this very close collaboration with the businesses and really understanding that what is happening there and how they change. So that was a very good good remark there, and I think you had a very systematic view in your schema there that we can learn from. So thank you so much for the presentation and discussion together.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And tomorrow we will continue the open fora, and I hope everybody will come join us tomorrow also. Thank you, and see you then tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Timo.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.